Hello and welcome to Startup Gippsland Live, a place where both budding and established regional founders can feel right at home. We're here to inspire you to take the path less travelled, to make your idea a reality, and most of all, to hone your entrepreneurial skills so that you can grow and scale your business and realise your potential. Get ready for this episode of Startup Gippsland Live. Now here's your host, Zoe Doyle.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Startup Gippsland Live. I'm your host, Zoe Doyle, and I'm joined by Jack Clayfield, one of Startup Gippsland's own. Today we're here for an episode that I like to call Watercooler Chats, where we discuss some of the industry trends and insights that we see for regional startup founders, while learning a little bit more about Jack's startup story. So Jack has spent the last 12 years supporting small business owners with B2B customer acquisition and university graduates starting their career through professional internships. Drawing upon his own successes and failures as a job seeker and entrepreneur, Jack is passionate about ongoing personal development and working with individuals who are ready to make and implement change in their careers, lives, and businesses. He's the current founder of an education startup, GraduateHero, and business mentor specialising in strategic partnerships and early customer acquisition. At Startup Gippsland, we're also very lucky to have Jack as one of our key program facilitators and mentors. Jack, welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Zoe. Great to be here.
It is great to have you, and from all of us at the team at Startup Gippsland, we're so excited to have you supporting and teaching our startups this year as well. It's just so exciting. They're very lucky.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Oh, awesome. Well, Jack, you are one of, as we've said, Startup Gippsland's program facilitators and mentors, and you have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to sales, acquisitions, and marketing. Tell us, have you always been entrepreneurial, and where have your passions stemmed from?
Sure. Well, thanks, Zoe. Firstly, to your kind words. I'm very lucky to be working with Startup Gippsland. I really love working with startups. Because I think it's you're not just dealing with a business owner's business. You're dealing with a vehicle that they've put their hopes and dreams for a better future for themselves and their family into. So I always love working with startup founders for that reason, because it's usually there's a bigger reason that they've started their business. So thank you for having me on the podcast and as a mentor and facilitator.
Oh, it's awesome. And particularly with your passion for personal development, we know, and we always talk about, particularly in this podcast, how important mindset is as well. So to have those skills as well and help people overcome some of those barriers is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And perhaps to your question on have you always been in entrepreneurship? I was having a bit of a think about that. I've definitely, to answer that question, I think I've definitely always been an entrepreneur. And I think as my experience has grown through jobs, my career and my own businesses, I've perhaps developed that entrepreneurship, a little later on as I've learned more about the business community, myself, my skills and experience. I love to tell, a little story for each of the questions when I can. And if I sort of look back to my earliest memory about, early business ambitions, it was probably around my first job as an 11 or 12-year-old boy delivering newspapers, for a news agency. And although I couldn't articulate having business ambitions at that sort of age, like I'm sure a lot of young founders, I remember thinking, how could I do this job better? How could I address maybe a need that's, not been met? And, I sort of took that attitude of, excellence and looking for an opportunity. And I used to put the newspapers on or as close to the doorsteps of all of my customers that I could see their doorstep as possible. And what was great about that was at the end of the year, we would get Christmas tips. All the paper boys would get Christmas tips. And I think because of that, commitment to, let's call it entrepreneurship, doing it better than everyone else and looking for a chance for excellence, I think I still hold the record for the largest amount of Christmas tips ever for all the paper boys. So that was a bit of an early, funny early story, but a lot of fond memories. And that probably leads into your questions about, where did my passion for entrepreneurship and, entrepreneurship come come from. Firstly, I'd say, I don't know about everyone else, but I'm from a very non-business family, so no one in my family has their own business, or probably has, I think, even ambition to have their own business. So I'm not quite sure where some of the business savvy might come from, or the business passion, but I love, from an entrepreneurship, looking back at all my jobs, I've always found it fun and challenging to look at, untapped opportunities within the organisation, whether it be starting a new product or service, or improving something, questioning, why has this been done this way? It's been done that way for so long. Surely there's a better way. And then later in my career, from an entrepreneurial perspective, like I think a lot of founders, chasing probably happiness and fulfillment, number one, has probably been my biggest passion, mostly because I think I'm pretty unemployable, like most entrepreneurs. I can't hold down a job for probably more than, I think, 2 years is probably my record. So having my own business was a need, because I just wasn't going to do well as an employee. And obviously the last part about my passion is definitely the financial independence and aspect, and the ability to be able to control my earnings. And like most founders, I can connect, that, financial independence to goals and things that I'd like to achieve for myself and my family as well. So
as well as give you more time on the golf course.
And yes, I didn't know if you were going to bring that up or not, but
I have to.
Yes, I'm enjoying a bit of a break, a bit of a career break, and a chance between businesses to really think about life priorities and put lifestyle perhaps first this time over money and long hours. So it's I'm very fortunate.
Fantastic.
And my wife's, if she's listening to this, I'm very grateful to have her helping support this stage in my life. So,
that's fantastic. I love it. You've mentioned entrepreneurship a few times. For our listeners at home, how would you define that, and has that helped you to become a better entrepreneur?
Yeah, absolutely. I think every business has multiple opportunities to improve their products or services, to streamline their processes, and for those people listening out there that maybe they're not sure, they want a business but they don't know where to start. I think looking for the treating your job as a business, and thinking, if this was my business, what could I improve? What new systems could I put in place? What programs could I pilot or trial? Is a great training ground for if and when you can define a business that you'd like to be in, then you've got some runs on the board and some experience. So I definitely encourage any employees or aspiring founders to, if they're in a job, use that job as an opportunity to pretend it's your business and run it like it's your business. And my experience is you'll also then be paid in line with your contribution to that business, so that can give you great financial options that you can then funnel into your own business. So that was a great question.
Because we often forget there's so many transferable skills from all of our life experiences, our jobs that we've held, that we can put into our business, and they teach us so much, and we often forget to think about all those things that we've learned along the way and how we can apply them.
Yeah, or that's a great point, but also to make it meaningful. I think really the stats are 50% of people don't like their job or their boss, but if you chose, you've got the flexibility. You're not going to be given a new project or a new initiative, but if you take that initiative to approach the director, to look for an opportunity to put forward a business case, not only you can turn that job that might be unfulfilling and meaningful into something that's really fulfilling and meaningful for you. So you don't need to always switch careers or wait till start your own business. I think you can, if you've got that initiative and go forward and try and turn your job into a business. My first opportunity I had very early in my career was I wrote a handwritten letter to the director of the firm, where I saw there was an opportunity for some training, and one of the staff was leaving, and because of that handwritten letter to her seeking an opportunity, she bumped up my pay 50% and put me into a role that was probably the start of my corporate career. So I was really, really grateful, and it was just one simple handwritten note rather than sitting there and fixating on how much I didn't like my job at that time, seeing it for an opportunity that it was.
I love that. That's so valuable because, you're not stuck wherever you are right now, that we have options, we have opportunities. You can just go out there and grab them with both hands. So I love that.
Yeah.
So, Jack, you recently sold your startup Industry Placements Australia. Tell us a little bit more about this. And was the goal of the business to always exit?
Sure. Happy to share. I'll probably break that down into, two parts and give you a bit more information about the business first. So, by Industry Placements Australia, I sold that in 2019. I sold the assets and the clients from the business back in 2019 June, so about 2 years ago, 2 and a bit years ago now. So Industry Placements Australia came about through my challenge as a graduate. I dropped out of uni actually, so I can hardly call myself a graduate, but trying to start my first professional career, and it took many years seeing the challenges I had even as a domestic student or graduate. So when I started Industry Placements, I wanted to help the average student like me, because I was a very average student, have a work experience, a placement or an internship as part of their studies to make that transition from graduation into the first paid position or professional role easier. So that was very much the objective. 5 years in after starting the business, we were able to achieve some success in contracting to colleges and universities, including Monash University and Swinburne University, and basically helping them run internship and industry-based learning programs, as well as running our own programs. So, I think it was great because a lot of those universities had never outsourced these programs before. So we found a really great niche in helping the universities with something they really struggled with, is connecting and networking with businesses and identifying opportunities for their graduates, usually final year graduates, to go and do a 3-month work experience or industry-based learning program there. So that's a little bit about the business. On the question of exit, it's a little bit of an interesting story, and certainly some learnings for some of your listeners. It actually came about through a partnership with our largest competitor at the time. So we shared a university account together. It was a large university account, so they'd split their account up between two providers in this space. And I really saw an opportunity to come together and pool our resources for both the organisation, so we could service the account in a more efficient way and also increase our profit margin, of course, as well. So the partnership was a really big success, and it was a good case study for the whole industry, actually. But what was really interesting is the CEO of the competition firm actually approached me during or shortly after the partnership was over, and offered for me to join the organisation and for them to buy my business. Now, it came at an interesting time because I didn't have plans to exit. I thought it was my forever business, probably as a lot of founders, you get emotionally attached to it.
Yeah.
But due to some challenges, I'd recently had my business partner, walk away from the business, and we'd had to let go most of our staff at the time, and 6 months later COVID came as well. So in hindsight, it was actually whilst I'm really proud of it, it was actually really good timing for me, and gave me a chance to have a break as an employee for a couple of years. So I guess in reflection, I am very proud of the exit, but to share with founders out there that think exits are all sunshine and roses, I don't think it's probably ever as pretty as it seems, and it certainly wasn't for me. It was a very tough time in my life, but I'd also encourage any founders, don't be afraid of your competitors or other people working in your industry. There is enough work out there for everyone, and nothing negative could come out of approaching your competitors and other people in your industry and looking at ways to to collaborate, to share resources. And in most cases, I think, there's probably a positive or a win-win for everyone. So.
And it's so great to hear that, because at Startup Gippsland, we always promote collaboration over competition, because, you fall into that trap where you fear your competitors and you think they're going to take all of your money and all of your business. Absolutely. But there's room for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
And I love your honesty about exiting the business, because, while I haven't had my own startup, I have had my own small business, and I exited that in 2019, which for the gym and health industry was a very good time for me. Must have had a crystal ball.
Yes.
But there was nothing easy. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It was. So, it's refreshing to hear that it's not always,
It's not sunshine and roses.
Kayla Itzini's getting $1 billion, or, getting bought out by some big American company. Yeah.
Yeah, but the stress that directors go through, even with a really successful exit, I think, it was definitely one of the most stressful times in my life. But, what doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. And now we've got an opportunity to rethink about, how we may do it again in the future. So always learnings.
Yeah.
And especially with time, time heals all wounds. So.
That's right, 100%. So you've recently launched GraduateHero. So how have you applied some of the lessons from industry placements into this new business?
Yeah, really interesting question. GraduateHero is an e-learning business, my first e-learning business. I think that's a big trend right now in the information age and with the courses and training that is out there. But it essentially was designed to provide a step-by-step training system to help students and graduates launch their careers as soon as possible after graduation. What we found, or what I found during industry placements, is given that we were facilitating the placements, a lot of the students and graduates weren't learning those soft or transferable skills they needed to, because we were doing it for them. So once the internship was over, they would be stuck, applying on job boards, not really knowing how to market themselves. So, I think that's a shame. That's something I struggled with. So by giving them a step-by-step system that they can 1, 2, 3, they can then within 90 days they can leave their graduation and move into either an internship or a paid graduate position, and not have to lean on an agency, or the heartbreak of job boards, as well, which can be so soul destroying for graduates. So I'm really excited about what we're doing there. From my personal perspective, I think second business time around, I'm very much putting lifestyle, like a lot of people at the moment, I think, with their careers, lifestyle, family and health, physical and mental first, rather than, just an unlimited growth mindset. So being very careful about how much we want to earn, how many days a week do I want to work. At this stage, it's only 1 day a week, because that's my goal at the moment, to have lifestyle back. So I think the biggest learning is, unlimited growth, and, working 60, 70 hours a week is a challenge for most. So I really wanted to build a business that gives me lifestyle first and work sort of second. And I think there's a great opportunity in that e-learning space to have that flexibility and time, yet still impact, a really large, amount of people that could use the service. So.
I love that, because often in the startup world, it's all about the grind and the hustle, and, finish your day job and then work 6 p.m. till midnight every day. But reality is, it doesn't have to look like that. It has to suit your life.
Absolutely.
And you can go at your own speed, and that's okay.
And I definitely encourage any, founders, whether you've, got a business and you're already working 60 hours, or maybe you're thinking about starting a business. I think a book that really put it into perspective, my experience from my previous startup, was Company of One by Paul Jarvis, and it talked a lot about successful CEOs and business owners that just had become disenfranchised with this unlimited growth mindset, and the hustle and the prestige of working 60, 70 hours a week, and going, how can I earn a similar amount of money but put lifestyle, family and health first, So I really encourage anyone that is, interested in having a healthy relationship with their startup to perhaps, have a read of that book.
Because that's the thing about scaling, isn't it? It's not necessarily that you have to put more hours into it. You just have to do it smarter.
Absolutely.
Do it better.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Sounds like a great read. Because we all like to wear that busy like a badge of honour.
Not anymore. I prefer to wear the, I play golf on Tuesday, Thursday. That's my badge of honour at the moment.
I love it. So, Jack, what advice would you give to founders who want to scale their business and then exit? What are some of those first steps?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a bit of a hard one. I think when it comes to scaling, I don't think there is a right or wrong. I don't believe in, right or wrong per se. I think each business is different, and the markets they operate and the goals of the director, the products and services. But from my experience, I guess my answer's, twofold. The first part would be, go ahead and make your first dollar as fast as possible. And the second part of that would be try to go to market with just one product or service as well. So if you want to combine it, go and make your first dollar as fast as possible with one product or service that you can take to market. Again, perhaps a little story I can share on that example. At 19, I was fortunate to start my first business. It was a network marketing business. It was a really supportive community, and they had a great professional development program as well, which I think set a lot of my confidence in place for a traditional business a little later on. But I was lucky to be partnered with a mentor in the team early on, and I remember within the first couple of months I got a check in the mail for $12.73. Yes, they did still have checks back in those days, but what I wanted to sort of share around that was that initial financial success and being so early, it kept me in that business for 7 years.
Wow.
Whereas a lot of people that joined would leave within 3 to 6 months. And I think that was predominantly from the fact that, because they weren't earning money, they weren't able to then connect that business anymore to their hopes and dreams that they initially had when they started it. So I'd say my learnings from that would be, as you've touched on, running your own business is a psychological battle first and foremost. So that motivation to wake up and take action, and you're the boss. No one's going to tell you what to do each day.
Yeah.
So having that financial, at least from my side, having money coming in kept my hopes and dreams alive, kept them linked to that business. And I guess the second, learning connected with making your first dollar, taking, one product or service to market as fast as possible would be probably the two reasons I think from my research that 99% of startups sort of fail within, say, 5 years would be cash flow and market fit. So by focusing on making your first sale, I think you take care of a couple of areas. Firstly, your own psychological belief in yourself and your business.
Definitely.
But then second of all, the ability to be financially stable. And you're going to find out if you are chasing your first sale, whether the market's prepared to pay you for your product or service. So I think you're ticking off a lot of boxes by going after that, that first sale or that first dollar. I think you're then addressing some of the most common reasons that startups might fail. Another little story there perhaps is one of my contracts that I had as a freelancer with a company in the corporate health solutions called Biz Health Services. So when I started with them, they had about 12 to 14 different services. So when I came in, I said, let's just pick one service we can clearly articulate, you're happy with, like that we can scale and take to market. So we chose, actually, interestingly, flu vaccinations, corporate flu vaccinations. And by focusing on one product and having that clarity and focus each day rather than worrying about the other 11, I was able to help the business open 200 accounts in 2 years.
Wow.
And a lot of those accounts, with government agencies, police force, fire brigade, very large organisations. Then, later down the track, they came back to purchase other services. So what I'd also encourage, founders to do is to pick that one product or service they think they can take to market. Your clients will buy other products and services for you, but the biggest risk I think founders have is taking something to market and getting that client account. And if you can get that client account open, if they like you, they'll look at other ways that they could do business with you. So yes, I guess in summary, go and make your first dollar as fast as possible, and just from a clarity and simplicity point of view, just take one product or service to market. So hopefully that's helpful to some of your listeners.
It's such great advice, and it's definitely something we teach at Startup Gippsland, particularly through our incubator programs, is we can get so wrapped up in getting it perfect and having all our ducks in a row that we forget that you can launch with a minimum viable product. It doesn't have to be flashy, it doesn't have to be hot, and you can do pre-sales and things like that, and all of that testing and measuring really helps us to define where you can take the business, and you can grow from there. So great advice.
Thank you, Zoe.
Yeah. Do it fast.
Do it fast.
And learn fast.
Yeah.
So Jack, you're living and breathing startup culture and talking to founders every day. What are some of the key barriers that you find that they're facing right now?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I think I always like to start with something positive and say that we're very fortunate in Australia to have such a great startup culture, a startup ecosystem, and government buy-in as well. And it makes sense because we are a land of small businesses, in Australia as well. That being said, I think the culture, from my experience, has become almost reliant on VC funding or grants over building a self-sustainable or a self-funded business. There is no right or wrong. Yeah, we have a lot of businesses that don't talk about being financially stable. They talk about, going straight to VC funding or getting grants. And perhaps I could, maybe there I can share a bit of a story about how chasing some investors with industry placements actually caused some major challenges, to us. So we did get to a period of growth where we thought, okay, it's probably time to get an office in the city, get a board of advisors. We put that in place. Okay, now we probably should get some investors and look at how we're going to scale. And it wasn't an intuitive. I think the business was already doing very profitable, supporting 2 full-time directors and growing. But, we've sort of got maybe shiny object syndrome, and we thought we need to grow for growth's sake, but we didn't question why we're growing. So that actually led us to pursuing 2 investors. And after 6 to 9 months of pursuing them and presentations and getting specialists in to help with, reports and presentations, that led to a lot of stress and pressure on the business, and unfortunately, that stress sort of forced my business partner to want to part ways. So luckily the business was acquired at that time, but I think had I listened to my intuition or our intuition and questioned perhaps why we were growing and did we actually need investors, I'd say we'd still probably be in business today, and we wouldn't have sold the business. I'd still have a business partner. So it was a great learning to trust my intuition, and that unlimited growth and scale is perhaps not always the best answer for businesses. I'm also not a maths guy. I am a numbers guy, but my understanding is only 0.1% of startups actually ever get funded. So whilst I think venture capital and funding and grants is great, I think the startup system would benefit from more businesses that staying in business longer, and if they wanted to stay in business longer, being self-sustainable and self-sufficient, especially financially, I think would drastically change the startup and small business landscape, and everyone would win. The other challenge I see, and I won't spend too much time on this, is software as well. I can see how appealing technology and software is. There's a lot of attention around it. There's a lot of resources there. Everyone seems to want to invest in technology businesses, but I think software, if you can take an MVP to market as a traditional business, and then lean on software and lean on investors to help you scale once it's proven. I think rather than building software into your DNA, how could that business be a traditional business and go and serve its clients products and services to the market first, and then use technology to then to scale. Same with VC funding. So I think in summary, the key barriers I really see is around that culture of funding and perhaps putting technology in where it might not need to go in just yet at that early stage. And again, I think if those two areas were addressed, we'd see a dramatic increase in the amount of startups that would actually stay viable rather than shutting down. And that's what we all really want to see. So, because there's some great ideas and great founders out there that end up walking away from their businesses. So
yeah, what fantastic feedback. Like it does resonate, and it really makes sense, everything that you're saying. And often we have we try and educate our listeners as much as we can about are you a startup, are you a small business? You can start as a small business and pivot and adapt and become a startup.
Absolutely.
You don't have to have that startup mentality right from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I always come back to what's the primary focus of your business? It's to exchange products or services for a fee. And I think you can do that really quickly and really simply before you start to get into the complexities of funding and making it a software or a tech play just because that's shiny. So I'm a big fan of simple traditional business first, and then maybe turning it in, using those resources and tools once you've proven there's a market there. And
I love it. Final question for you, Jack. So what other trends or insights are you seeing for startups in regional Australia at the moment, and where do you believe that these founders should be focusing their efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a really interesting question, especially sort of with the last 2 years with the global situation. Been really interesting to watch. I guess regional seems to be getting a lot of attention, not just for startups, but certainly there's a lot of press and some interesting trends and probably exciting opportunities for businesses or startups to address. No personal stories here, but some of the trends that I like are exciting me. Definitely, I don't know what you call it, the great migration or inland migration, people changing, location for work-life balance. And I think it shows that, people are interested in that. They just didn't know how to do it while they were, perhaps commuting to the city. So there's some fantastic trends that are in and around that. I don't know whether great resignation, but I think again similar, people are now that they have the flexibility to perhaps work from home, have more work-life balance. People are looking at their careers a little bit more seriously, and of course so I think most people are thinking about a side hustle or some side income as well. I think staffing and employment are really interesting challenges, especially in the hospitality, tourism and agricultural sector. Affordable housing is another big one. I'm really passionate and closely watching to see what eventuates and maybe what the government will do in that space, and perhaps off the back of seeing my parents and my in-laws buy caravans and myself finishing a recent hike through Kosciuszko and Alpine National Forests. Ecotourism, I think people want to get outdoors and experience nature. So there's some other really interesting trends that I see, and challenges. As far as insights, perhaps for some of the startups that might be listening to this, looking at perhaps taking Gippsland as an example, my understanding is the big industries in Gippsland are health, agriculture, and then probably tourism in that order. So looking at how you could service the demand, perhaps solve a unique problem to that region before putting that pressure to scale nationally and internationally is probably a great focus, for any founders that are considering, a regional startup. Obviously, having a fintech business in a regional area that's heavily focused on ag and tourism might not be the right fit. You may be better placed in Sydney, the financial hub, as an example. So I think definitely picking a challenge, or a problem or a need that your region has that's going to be relevant and well received is probably, a great opportunity for regional founders. The second part, I think, is although we have great resources and startup culture in the cities, often I think regional areas, they don't have access to the same resources and support as, startup founders in maybe the capital cities. So I think getting access to things like community support, network, businesses, maybe stakeholders, government, and obviously learning and training is really important. And I think what I really love about Startup Gippsland as an example for there is you cover all of those areas through your training program. They can access it all in one office space, accessing networking and learning programs and mentors, all the important things that a regional startup needs to grow. So I think if you are a regional founder, do look for a support structure or your program or company like Startup Gippsland where you can access all of the needs that you have as a small business in one place. And I think you guys are doing a fantastic job with the way that you're bringing all of those resources together in one place rather than have to go looking in multiple areas or trying to do it by themselves. So
Oh, thank you, Jack. And what a fantastic time to be a startup.
Yes.
Really, there's a lot of opportunity out there and you've touched on it, and I think everything you've just said in that answer ties back to your make your first dollar off one product or service, and I think that's a really core message from today is just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to sit down with you. You are such a wealth of knowledge, and it's been so awesome to hear more about your insights and your experiences from paperboy to, successful startup founder. And at Startup Gippsland, we're also so excited and very lucky to have you supporting our founders. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Zoe. I really look forward to the upcoming program and working to help those early stage founders validate and start their businesses in the Igniter program. So super excited to see who we might be working with then.
Oh, absolutely. And if you'd like to get in touch with Jack, you can reach out to him via email, hello@jackclayfield.com. Well, that's all for today, folks. I'm sad to share that this concludes Season 1 of Startup Gippsland Live. It's been fantastic to sit down and share inspiring interviews and stories with all of you each and every fortnight. So thank you so much for tuning in. We can't wait to see you back again in Season 2, but until then, keep dreaming big, taking action, following your entrepreneurial pursuits, and showing the world that the best ideas can come from the smallest of backyards.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Startup Gippsland Live. Please be sure to subscribe, and if you're enjoying the show, we'd love for you to leave us a review. We can't wait to have you tune in again soon. For more great resources and business tips, make sure you head over to our website, startupgippsland.com.au, your home for Gippsland entrepreneurs.